shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist. A young loner on a crusade to champion the cause of the innocent, the helpless, the powerless, in a world of criminals who operate above the law.
Hey, it's me, and welcome to Trump Mafia. Now let's talk about bias. After the hearing with Rod Rosenstein, it was pretty obvious that we're not just talking about individual bias of any person there in the Mueller team or at the DOJ or FBI. Everybody has their political opinions, and after decades of, milky toast Republicans like the Bush family people, or the Clinton cancer, or the Black Plague Obama, you're going to have many people in there that are left or left-leaning, or in fact ultra-liberals like that Peter Strzok. But there's a difference between having a bias as a person and doing your job with a bias, and it influences your actions. So we're talking about biased actions. Now we've seen evidence of biased actions, and therefore the Mueller probe is in deep trouble, because Robert Mueller had this guy removed, but he was there the whole time. So everything that happened while he was there, from the start of the probe until they got rid of him, it's all tainted. You have to throw it all out. So in fact, the whole Mueller probe, it's worthless in a legal sense. But it's not just that. If you look at biased actions, how come Robert Mueller never interviewed Hillary Clinton about why she paid for the Russian Trump dossier? What did she know about it? And the same with Democrats. And you have to wonder also why he hasn't interviewed John McCain, who sent an aide to get that Trump dossier. So McCain's actions are very similar to those of James Comey, who, by the way, is Robert Mueller's boyfriend. And so we're talking about biased actions that taint the Mueller probe even now. So maybe they got rid of Peter Strzok for PR purposes, or to give the appearance that, we're really unbiased. See, we got rid of a person. Yeah, months later, but you still see the same biased actions going on. I mean, the only unbiased action that Robert Mueller could now take is to simply wrap up and resign and go home. And really, if you look at the corruption in the DOJ and the FBI, it's not just something you can solve with closing the Mueller probe. The Mueller probe is a symptom of this deep corruption. Rod Rosenstein has a lot to answer for, but you're talking about the whole Hillary investigation. It's tainted. It should be redone from scratch. James Comey was obviously a Hillary Clinton operative. So is Rod Rosenstein. And of course so is Robert Mueller. These people are not Republicans, even if some of them may claim that they're Republicans. As we know, you have many Democrats that go around saying, I'm a Republican, and it's not true. And the truth must also be told about James Comey and Robert Mueller. We're talking about incompetent buffoons who cut corners, who cheat, who work with people that are questionable, nefarious even. And so we're talking about hacks. And they both got ahead by fixing it for corrupt politicians. And we're talking about political operatives, not professionals. And it also just so happens that they're both friends. Now, let's not forget that James Comey leaked to the New York Times about his memo with the meeting that he had with Trump, with the express purpose to get a special counsel appointed. So we're talking about Robert Mueller, James Comey, and Rod Rosenstein colluding even before James Comey was fired to have a ready set backup plan, and that is really the appointment of a special counsel was always in the works. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the intelligence briefings that the president didn't want to get every day, and really that's the deep state approaching the president, as they did with every other president, massaging his opinion, trying to influence him, trying to guide him. And it's an undue influence of a deep state that they're really used to having a puppet president, but not this president. But they did go to President Trump in the beginning with these intelligence briefings saying that yes, your victory is worthless. Actually, the Russians did it. And they showed the Trump dossier. So of course, if you're Trump, you're not only insulted, but you realize what these people are doing. They're delegitimizing you and trying to make you their puppet by saying, if we reveal all of this stuff, then people will see that you didn't win the election in a legitimate way. But Trump said, go to hell. And he also kicked out these intelligence people. So now they have to go through John Kelly and some other people. And so what we're talking about is a deep state in many different ways, trying to manipulate the president, even blackmail the president with a Trump dossier. When that didn't work, they create this special counsel probe, and of course there's no basis for it. But on top of that, it's not only biased, loading it up with Obama and Clinton people. It's also meant to help Democrats, because what Robert Mueller is doing right now, today, is starting to go after companies that were handling voter data. So we're talking about real campaign organizations to approach Americans, and who is organizing the voter outreach in every state, and how many voters do they have in their databases, and all of these top secret campaign issues that of course Democrats want to see. They want to see, how did Trump win, and how did they really work in every state to bring out the votes, like in Michigan and Pennsylvania. And they want to learn from it so that in 2020 they can really battle against Trump in a better way. And so they're using Robert Mueller to get that secret data. I mean, that is belonging to a campaign, that's belonging to Republicans. And this is also a bridge too far, if you ask me. And of course, if you ask officials at the RNC, they will also not appreciate it. I mean, we're talking about Democrats using the Russia probe. It's not related even to Russia. It's related to trying to block and harass, even blackmail a sitting president, because they don't like the outcome of an election and they want to hide their own crimes. They're afraid. I mean, they live in fear, and they're realizing in these days that no matter what they do to Trump, it's still Congress going after them, and so they're in trouble. But we're also looking at this Mueller probe also being very interested in opposition research, everything about the Trump family, wiretapping the Trump family, and then seeing how they won in the Rust Belt, how they reached out to voters, and it's disgusting. And this is another case of a biased action. I mean, what Robert Mueller is doing now, it's even more of a biased action than one goofy loser trying to impress his girlfriend and, obviously trying to hurt the presidency with what he was doing, also to get a FISA warrant. But Robert Mueller getting rid of that guy doesn't even begin to solve the problem. I mean, that's like 1% of the total problem. And the main problem is Robert Mueller himself, posing as a Republican, and obviously very corrupt and trying to protect himself because he's one of the criminals. I repeat, Robert Mueller is one of the criminals. So whenever you hear some people saying, Robert Mueller is an amazing guy, or Robert Mueller is secretly working with Trump, You're listening to people that are influenced by the deep state and the swamp. And so really, Robert Mueller is helping Democrats in preparing like a counter-offensive against Trump and the whole campaign organization, with an eye on 2018, of course, but especially 2020. And I will say that it's not just Democrats. Perhaps it's also many people in the establishment. But I say when it comes to this biased action, specifically going after campaign voter data, that is really something coming from Democrats. And then you know that Robert Mueller, his biased actions are to help Democrats specifically. Now overall, you don't see him interviewing Hillary Clinton. That's a biased action. You don't see him interviewing John McCain. That's a biased action. But in fact, Robert Mueller not resigning is a biased action, because the guy knows that he's there to take down Trump and is hopelessly biased against Trump, and so he needs to go. Now, he was rejected in an interview with Trump. He wanted to replace James Comey to keep the scam going and to protect everyone, and Trump saw that and he said, "Get lost, Bob, get lost." And so there's also a kind of motive, a revenge motive, if you will, or at least you can argue that, and that would be another biased action. Maybe you can argue that some of the stuff that Robert Mueller is doing right now, it's partly because he was rejected by President Trump, and he feels offended because he's an elite, don't you know, in 12 years as FBI director. I mean, this guy really thinks he's awesome, but if you really look at his career, he only got ahead because he fixed it for corrupt politicians. And the summary really about Robert Mueller, at least if I kept personnel files on these people, it would be Robert Mueller III, incompetent buffoon who creates clusterfucks everywhere he goes, hopelessly corrupt, not a Republican, a Democrat asshole.
All right.